They stood there not knowing what to do or what to say. 3.5 years had gone by in the blink of an eye, and all hope seemed to be lost. The disciples stood at the cross, tears going down their face, but at the same time trying to stay as far away from it as they could, because they knew that the moment that they were recognized, they'd probably be up on a cross themselves. Only John was there with Jesus' mother Mary, tears going down their cheeks as they looked up into the face of Jesus, who was going through so much pain and so much agony. They had known that he had not gotten any sleep that Thursday night. He had been whipped terribly that day and placed upon two beams that were the roughest beams ever to be invented. Oh, they didn't know what to do. All Mary wanted to do was to hold Jesus once again, picturing that he was just a little boy, but not a man that was nailed to the tree for nothing that he did wrong. They didn't know what to say, they didn't know what to do, but they knew that all that they could do was to stay there at the cross to be with Jesus. People were laughing at Jesus, people were ridiculing Jesus. Even the thieves were laughing at him, and one even said, "Hey, you saved others. Why don't you save us? Take yourself off the cross and take us with you." The other thief looked at him and said, "Oh, I don't know what to say to you. We deserve what we're getting. He doesn't deserve anything at all." And he turned and he looked at Jesus and he said, "Jesus, when you come again, remember me." Jesus lifted up his head, pushed himself up, got a deep breath, and he looked over at the thief and said, "Here's what I tell you today. I give you the assurance that when I come again, you will be with me forever." Other people heard that as well, and they laughed. Even today, people hear that and they laugh because of the syntax of the sentence or how the sentence is worded. But we do know this, that when Jesus promises something, his promise is for sure. And it is sure because he said it. They didn't know how to deal with this. Time went on. Mary knew that Jesus was about to die. She could see it in his face. Jesus looks down and he says, "John, you see my mom. She is now your mom. Take care of her." Then he looked up to heaven and he said, "Father, I commit myself into your hands." He took a deep breath and they could hear that rattle of death on his lips. But at the same time, they heard something different. Because as he was drawing his final breath, his heart muscle was ripping in two. And as he's doing this, he cries out in deep agony and in deep pain, saying, "It is finished." While this is happening across the valley, there at the temple curtain that divided the holy from the most holy was ripped in two. Not only were the priests surprised, but also the people that were there were surprised because they could see into the very inner court of the sanctuary itself. And as they looked, they noticed that the Ark of the Covenant, the very presence of God itself, was not there anymore. How long it had been gone, they didn't even know. But what they didn't realize is that the presence of God was just sacrificed and given for an atonement for us so that we would be able to live forever. Now they knew that the Sabbath was coming, and the Pharisees and the Sanhedrin pleaded to Pilate to make sure that everything was cleaned up before the Sabbath, so they told the soldiers to go and break the legs of everybody up there. And when the soldiers got to Jesus, They said, hold on just a second. Let's not break his bones. He looks like he's already dead. So they take a spear and they plunge it into his side, and they see something that normally they didn't see before. But remember this, the Romans were extremely smart, especially in medicine. So when they plunged the spear into his side, they saw two streams coming out, one of blood and one of water. Normally both are together, but they were both separated. And at seeing this, they knew that not only was he dead, but that his heart muscle was ripped in two. It was at that moment that the centurion saw this, fell down to his knees and said, I know that this man is the Son. He is God himself. At that moment, Joseph and Nicodemus were in the presence of Pilate asking for the body of Jesus. They had a special tomb prepared, which was Joseph's family's tomb, brand new tomb, but they wanted Jesus to use it. But they also wanted to get him down before the Sabbath came so he could rest. But as they were doing this, all that was going through their minds was that all hope was lost. There was nothing that was going to shake them, that their hope was found in nothing. They gently took Jesus' body off the cross and they started to wrap it, and they did it very hurriedly because they knew that the Sabbath was almost coming. They put the anointing oils on the cloths, knowing that they'd have to come back that Sunday to actually anoint Jesus' body. They took him to the tomb, they laid him on the bench, and they rolled the rock back in front of the tomb. What they didn't know was that the Pharisees were also in the presence of Pilate, pleading for him to send a legion of Roman guards to actually guard the tomb, because they were afraid that the disciples would come and steal Jesus' body away, saying that he'd actually been resurrected. And they said, to make sure this is sure, we want you to seal the tomb, but don't just seal the tomb. Send your signet ring to be placed in the center of the seal, so that we know that if this seal is broken, something actually happened. Little did they realize that God himself was actually chuckling, saying, oh, just wait. Something is about to happen, but not how you expect. Sabbath came. The disciples and others were in the upper room resting, scared to death because they had no idea what was to come or how to process this. Satan and his angels were dancing around the tomb of Jesus, so excited that they had finally won. But all of heaven was saying, oh, just wait, it's Sabbath, but Sunday's coming. Jesus waiting patiently for the command to step up, to reclaim, and to walk out. Early Sunday morning, a small group of guards were in front of the tomb. A few others were asleep, and they were warming their hands by a small fire when all of a sudden they heard something that we could call now as a sonic boom. They didn't know how to describe it, but it was an extreme loud noise, and then all of a sudden it was followed by a flash of lights, which blinded them momentarily, and then all of a sudden they saw Gabriel himself walk around the corner. And at that was the last thing that they knew. Not only was that the last thing that they knew, but Satan and his angels could not stay in the presence of extreme glory. As Gabriel had just come from the Father himself, had been in God's presence for who knows how many years. And so that glory was on him as well when just one angel comes to give the announcement to Jesus. He takes the rock, pulls it away, and puts it to its sides. And he goes to the opening and he says, Jesus, it's time. Jesus walks through in his own power out of that tomb. Gabriel rushes to him, gives him a big hug. hug because he knows that it's finally he can be with his best friend again. And Jesus looks at him and says, I know that there's still a party, but I've got a few things I need to do as well. Gabriel goes and he sits on the rock that was in front of the tomb, and Jesus starts to get ready to go up. All of a sudden he sees Mary and he stops. Mary sees him, but tears are rolling down her cheeks because she was sure that all hope was lost. She had the anointing oils to anoint his body, but she wasn't sure what could be done about the stone. So she sees Jesus and she sees the stone rolled away, and she thinks that Jesus is the gardener. And she goes, oh, sir, can you please tell me where they put Jesus' body? I have some special anointments that I want to anoint his body for burial so that we can go on, and we know there's no more hope, but maybe we can have some hope. Tears going faster and faster, and all Jesus says is, Mary. She grabs her robe and she wipes her eyes, and then she realizes that it was Jesus right in front of her the whole time. And she grabs his robes. Jesus smiles and puts a hand on her shoulder and says, Mary, Mary, don't hold me back. I have a party that I need to go to, but I'll be back. Jesus goes to heaven for the party, and he comes back, and he spends 40 days with the people, making sure that they knew what he wanted them to do. Isn't that what Easter is all about? Is remembering why Jesus came, the fact that he died, the fact, not just that he died, we need to remember that because there are so many churches that keep Jesus on the cross. If Jesus is still on the cross, we have no hope. It was because Jesus was buried and resurrected that we have hope today. But even as we take a look at the whole concept of the cross and Easter and everything else, this was a very violent grace that even as God works, sometimes he works through mysterious ways that we will not understand. But even in a violent grace, his love, his mercy, and his justice are still continually shown.